disciples of the Watch.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Welcome to the Disciples of the Watch podcast, where we talk rock and metal and play tunes from independent artists from all over the globe. And now your hosts, Gene Vogel and Nate Matnich.
Disciples, welcome back to another fabulous episode of the Disciples of the Watch podcast. I hope that you're ready for a truly difficult deep dive for Nate and I.
In this episode, we're going to work our way from worst to best on Overkill's 20 studio albums. I'm Nate Matnich.
And I'm Gene Vogel. Thank you for joining us. Nate, you said it. 20 studio albums by the little old band known as Overkill, the working man's band.
Yeah, they're a hard-working band for sure.
Absolutely. 20 very decent albums, some more than others. And boy, I don't know about you, Nate, but I had a bear of a time with, I'm going to say, my top 14, just kind of seeing how things fit. And it was a bitch.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of very closely rated albums in their catalog, so it wasn't as easy as just assigning a number value and putting it in a ranking. There was a bunch of them that were very, very close in their rankings, so had to kind of get in and listen and, look at it in other ways. So,
well, yeah, I went through and re-listened on some of them and re-ranked and moved things around. I was still playing around with everything, making sure this morning before we started recording, just to make sure I was happy with where my list is at. And again, I was more worried about the top 14 or 15. And then it got, a little bit tighter, of course, as you start to get closer to the number one slot. But damn, it was quite the adventure.
Hey, for a band that I've liked since the 80s, who I've been a fan of since the 80s, I was super surprised to find some of their later albums higher up in my rankings, which we could talk about more in detail as we get into the rankings. But I don't think there's a lot of bands, even Slayer, being my favorite metal band, Repentless didn't make it into my top 5, I was interested to see. Overkill's put out some really solid metal albums here in the last 10 years.
One thing I learned too is I had the same experience as what you just described, and we're not the only ones. I found a whole bunch of lists that we're going to use. As far as, I won't get too deep in, I'll try to burn through I won't, as far as the names and stuff, I'm more going to focus on the numbers unless we need to discuss a certain person's ranking or something like that. But I was very surprised in a fashion, but then again, once I looked at my rankings and thought about more of the discussion, like on the Facebook group and all that jazz, that, yeah, people are digging some of these newer releases, and it's pretty scattered, because some people think the new album is one of the top 5, but then they'll put Wings of War towards the back end of the list or something like that. It's holy buckets. So it's very diverse as far as the rankings. I'm excited to get into this one.
Yeah, I mean, they have so many good albums that it's not like there's a collective, everybody's oh yeah, this Overkill really sucks, like Megadeth fans would for Risk or Super Collider. You know what I'm saying?
Super Collider. Thank you.
Overkill doesn't have any of those kind of albums, so I can see how it could be so varied, because their music is so good across the board that if you're a fan, then there's other connections you're going to have, which I could see how that could be spread out like that.
And I had an epiphany. We'll get to it once we get to the album, but I figured out as we were going through this endeavor why there's a certain album that really kind of hits the spot for me, or that I have maybe an affinity for, or something. We'll get to it when we get there, but it was nice to actually do this because it really made me well, for one, understand how important their current work is and their catalog, and also just where that, because I'm going to say early 2000s, late 90s, I was buying the albums, but I wasn't really clicking with them, other than I enjoyed them. They were great additions. You could put those, if you had a jukebox and you could put 20 CDs in there and you put 20 Overkill CDs in there, I don't know if you'd ever find a song that you just say, I have to skip this song.
Right.
And that is saying something, man. 20 albums and all of those songs. And So you'd hear something off of your 20th ranked album, and you'd still enjoy it, even if it wasn't the best song on that album. That's how good these albums are for me.
Definitely.
And it's one of the reasons that Overkill is one of my favorite bands of all time.
I got to be honest. I didn't even do my list. It was too hard. I asked AI to do it for me.
Did you? Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because I do have an AI list that I've included in our collection as well.
I know. I seen you posted that on Facebook, and I thought it was funny because it didn't state its own opinion. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it basically went and did a bunch of research, and it was like, well, based on all the rankings that I was able to find,
yeah,
here's this. And of course, that's only text-based. They're not pulling stuff from videos or anything like that.
Yeah, that's funny.
But I thought just for kicks, I'm going to throw that in there.
Totally worth it.
Well, anything else before we rip open this scab and start to pick these up 20-1?
No, I've put a lot of work into this. I'm looking forward to talking through this list.
Well, fabulous. So one thing I do want to mention before we actually start tackling this list, we are going to use one off of Metal Nation's site. There's not a lot of them that have the new album. It's only been out for 2 weeks now, Nate?
Yes.
So you and I've got our rankings because we were focused on doing this. And I did reach out to one creator, and he basically just said, well, I haven't gotten to it yet. And he didn't seem like he had any ambition to update his collection or his list. I did reach out to the person who actually created the list that we are going to be using, and he did respond that Scorch would be, we'll get there when we get to Scorch, I guess. But I did get a response, and eventually there will be a number. We'll see if we get a number before I post the episode. If not, then so be it. There'll be a link to all these lists that we use, except the AI one, of course, that you'll find at dotwpod.com. Nate, I think it's time. All the work, it's going to pay off. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. You want to kick off the worst? This is actually, according to off of Metal Nation, the author of this piece is Rustin Rose. So Rustin, if you do listen to this, we are looking forward to getting your Scorched ranking. So please get that updated as soon as you possibly can.
At number 19, we've got Bloodletting from 2000. The turn of the millennium is where we begin our journey. If there was a point in Overkill's career where they came close to phoning it in, this would be the album. The band opens the aughts with an album that finds them reconnecting with their thrashier roots. Overall, it lacks commitment and the decisive energy the band is known for. That said, it's still a solid album because, hey, it's fucking Overkill.
Yes.
As they always do, they kick open the front door with the rumble heavy opener Thunderhead. But immediately you notice Ellsworth's vocals are a bit too nasally, which carries through the whole record. The true weakness with this record is in the overall lack of memorability. Some might argue a few of the band's 90s efforts were worse records, but all of them had moments that stuck with you. Bloodletting can't really make the same argument, though it's still a raucous listen, even if it doesn't stick.
So he's got it ranked as his worst at number 19. Nate, where do you have Bloodletting?
I'm at number 16 with Bloodletting, so I don't have it quite as far down the list. And I agree, Thunderhead is the song on that album for sure.
Oh, that reminds me. I was going to do it like that. Do a ranking of top songs or something along those lines, because I think we did that in the past. But
I've got songs for every album.
Well, I guess I do have a ranking system. I guess I could be using. So he's got it at number 19. I have it at number 19 as well. Nate, you've already said yours. The Bing AI said it would be a number 17 on its list. Loudwire has it at number 15. Mr. Rictus Grin. Actually, that one I think I got off of a YouTube video that the guy basically did. He wasn't committing to ranking the albums. He just he'd rank them basically from like elite level to bad. And he wouldn't assign them like a worst to best ranking. So this guy jumped on the listing or on the comment section and said, here's my list from a true Overkill fan. So I decided to grab his. He has it at number 13. Ranker has it at number 17. Rate Your Music Peace Cells 215 has it number 11. And our final contributor is a video called Pair of Jeans Reviews. And they have it at number 18. Now, some of these are only going to be Let's see, there's You Have It, I Have It. Bing AI has the new album in there. And let's see, and we have one more. Oh yeah, Mr. Rictus Grin has it in his list too. That was another reason I wanted to include it. So we'd have another ranking to help bring in the new album.
Well, surprised to see that up at number 11 on somebody's list.
Yeah, especially because, what do we got? 19, 19, 16, 17, 15, 13, 17, 11, and 18. Yeah, very interesting. And then on the master list, the new score shakes out to that one ranking at number 18 of 20.
I kind of want to go back and listen to it now with this, after hearing this comment about his vocals being a little nasally. I don't necessarily recall that being a standout on the album, but I'm going to go back and listen to it now.
All right, coming in at number 18 is Immortalis from 2007. The last Overkill album prior to the band's massive reemergence with the beastly Ironbound in 2010. 3 years between records is an eternity for Overkill, so perhaps the band knew it had to up the ante after the mostly forgettable Immortalis. Vernie's songwriting feels a bit tired here, and that sense of creative lethargy plays out across the record, with few high points. Even a cameo by Lamb of God's Randy Bly could not save Immortalis from mediocrity. In fact, his appearance on Skull and Bones is one of the album's true low points. Wow. I used to think that, but actually my thoughts have changed on that. But again, I feel obligated to state Overkill mediocrity is still better than most bands' better works. Drummer Ron Lipnicki made his debut here, and that provided a fresh punch over the complacent malaise of the departed Tim Malari. Immortalis, number 18, Nate. I have Immortalis at number 18 as well.
Yeah, I didn't figure you'd rank that one very high. I have it at number 14.
Let's see where it falls. We have Bing at 20 as the worst album. Loudwire at 19. Then we got 16, 19, 19, and 16 with Perigene reviews on the end there. When it all shakes out with all the rankings, this album falls to number 20 as the lowest ranked Overkill album. Nate, you have it the highest ranked.
Yeah, I was noticing that. I became a fan of Overkill in the 80s, like around 88 when Under the Influence came out. I followed them very closely all the way up through Horoscope. Basically, due to life circumstances, I did not keep up with Overkill for many years. And then the first Overkill I bought when I started getting back into them was the one we just talked about, Bloodletting. And then this came out. And for me, this grabbed me a lot. And for me, this felt like it was a return of Overkill to their roots, or whatever you want to say. Though after hearing like Ironbound onward, now I realize that this album isn't as strong as I felt it was when I had first bought it, but it still does rank up there for me a little bit higher than number 20 for sure. And I think the songs that stand out are Devils in the Midst, Skull and Bones, and Hellish Pride. And I don't care for Randy Blythe in general. I don't care for Lamb of God, just either of them, but I do like his work on that song. So I disagree totally with the initial comments here on the list.
Rustin's comments. Yeah, I have to admit, when I first heard their duet, basically, I didn't like it. But when I went back and listened to it through the years, and especially now going through and ranking it, that one, I connected with that song a little bit more. And actually, I appreciate Randy's contribution on that one. It was a grower song for me. I'm finding that with a lot of Overkill. It's like you get to this initial like base level of like, it's Overkill and it's good. And then as you go through the album again, all of a sudden shit just starts creeping in. It starts getting in your brain and you're like, this fucking song, this is way better than I remember. And then you hear it again, you're like, they got to play this every single fucking time they play live now, because this is a top-notch Overkill song on this fucking album, man.
Word. All right, at number 17, we've got Necroshine from 1999. As the band closed out the century and the nation dealt with Y2K, Bobby Blitz was dealing with the aftermath of an aggressive type of nose cancer. Coincidentally, it led to an album full of his more adventurous vocal moments. I'm listening to this album as I look back over their catalog, and it reminds me that even though the band has really gone in more of a groove metal direction during the 90s, they were still balls heavy and almost overwhelmed the groove itself. It is arguably the band's most experimental record to date, and not all of that experimentation paid dividends. Like Bloodletting, Necroshine, despite being a more memorable album for its diversity, still does not resonate with lasting remarkability. One can enjoy listening to it, but few fans go back to it often. Superb production stands out.
Where do you have Necroshine, Nate?
I have this one at 16.
16. Wasn't Bloodletting 16?
Yes, you're correct. I'm at number 15. Sorry.
Ah, there we go. I was going to say, you're messing up my formula.
Damn it.
So you've got it at number 15. I have it at number 15. Bing has it at 16. Loudwire 14. Then we have 15, 15, 17. And Paragene's Reviews gives it a number 9. Breaks into the top 10, Nate, on Paragene Reviews. The new ranking comes down to number 17.
I think the opening track is really good on there, and Stone Cold Jesus is a good one on there as well.
Yeah. Yeah, the title track is kick-ass. They've played that live quite a bit. Up next at number 16 is 1994's WFO. While the album title stands for Wide Fucking Open, one might surmise it means where the fuck are the others? As the most noticeable element one hears is the dominance of Dee Dee Verney's bass throughout the record. I've always bemoaned the bass being buried in metal, but this is so in your face it becomes distracting. It marks the band's first album completely self-produced, which might explain the latter issue. One can hear the influence of the groove metal trending peeking in throughout the record, though it definitely finds the band once again embracing its thrash aesthetic. WFO came just 1 year after the broad departure of 93's I Hear Black, and the speed with which the band got it out suggests they let some of the harsh critiques of said album push them a bit. If not for the aforementioned bass issues, this might rank several slots higher. Blitz gets absolutely sinister on the closer, Gasoline Dream, an album highlight. WFO, number 16, Nate. I have WFO at number 9.
I'm at number 18. And I just want to say I am so glad this guy calls out the bass on this album, because it is... My first introduction to Overkill was Under the Influence, and that album also has very pronounced bass on it, though it works better with the sound of everything else, whereas this album, it just stands out, you know? But it's just interesting how they got away with it on one album but not the other. And then it's not like that's their typical sound, you know what I'm saying? Like Dee Dee's bass is usually noticeable, but on some albums it's way more noticeable, and then this one is way over the top.
Yeah, I saw your reaction when I was reading that.
It cracked me
up. The big smile on your face. Continue with the rankings. Bing AI has it number 13. Loudwire, number 11. Then we go 10, 9, 9, and finish with a 14. That gives us the new ranking of number 13 on the list. So definitely a few slots higher.
I think they do good as a groove, you know, with the groove. When they added the groove metal to their metal, I think they pull it off really well.
And that's one thing I like about the band is they're diverse and they're still Overkill. I know, Megadeth took a chance and Metallica took chances, and they completely became different bands in a fashion. Risk is such a strange, quote unquote, Megadeth album, and Super Collider the same. Metallica completely shifted gears after the Black Album, and it's like, we're going to be more of a rock band, and then eventually finding their way back into more heavier music after Saint Anger. Although I guess Saint Anger was heavy, it just sounded like shit and just was, thrown together. It wasn't a very good album. But with Overkill, you don't have that. You have diversity, you have groove, you have thrash, you have just almost like moments of Sabbathy, injections in there. So there's one on the new album. There's the whole I Hear Black was littered with kind of a throwback type of vibe that they were going for. They stretch, but they're always within the box that is Overkill. They have not put out their Saint Anger or anything like that.
Agreed. You can always count on an Overkill album being an Overkill album.
Yeah, you can pre-order it and then know.
And still having a fresh sound.
Yes, and not treading the same waters where I feel, that's one thing. They're consistent like an AC/DC, but I don't feel they're like as like cookie cutter is an AC/DC. Not even close.
Yeah, it's not, the cookie cutter's not there exactly. They got hooks. They got cool elements that grab your attention for the most part.
Yeah, and the bass isn't buried.
Well, number 15, we've got, I don't even know how you say this one, Relics.
I think it's supposed to be Relics 14 or Relics IV. It's a fucked up one.
It's from 2005. While some Overkill fans often bemoan much of their 90s output, I would argue that the aughts were their weakest decade, from Bloodletting to Immortalis to Relics. The band felt a bit uninspired overall. Only 2003's Killbox 13 seemed to break out of that. Again, it's all relative, as New Jersey thrash metal masters don't make bad albums, just some that are better than others.
Amen.
This album blends a balance of Overkill's thrash with the groove elements they incorporated in the 90s, and there are some classic headbangers on here like Bats in the Belfry, A Pound of Flesh, Within Your Eyes, and the punkish dust-up Old School. The production on Relics is fairly raw, which works to the band's favor as much as detriment. On the positive side of that, the guitar sound is thick and muscular. Beefy riffage is always a plus.
Wow, I don't care for the guitar sound on this one as much. So he's got number 15. Nate, where are you at?
I'm at 17.
I got this at 20. This is my least favorite Overkill album. Bing has it 19, Loudwire 19. Then we have Mr. Rictus Grin has it number 6. And then we have Ranker at 18, Peace Cells at 15, and Pair of Jeans has it at 19, his worst. So the new ranking is 19.
I could live with that.
Yeah, for me, the standout, there's the best song on this. I mean, there's some decent ones on here, but Old School is the one that I feel is and that's even just kind of a tongue-in-cheeky kind of song, but it's fun.
It's funny they listed 4 songs here, and none of those are my standouts. I had Wheels and Play the Ace as mine.
Oh wow, that's the beauty of Overkill, is the diversity within the catalog and the listeners and the people's preferences. You're seeing a lot of that here with these rankings, so it's very cool.
There's not much status quo with Overkill. It's pretty wide open.
All right, coming in at number 14 is 1996's The Killing Kind. In prototypical Overkill fashion, the band throat punches you right out of the gate with the opener, Battle. Immediately apparent is the punishing fretwork of newcomers Joe Comeo and Sebastian Marino. May he rest in peace, by the way. Verney's bass rumbles and Ellsworth is all gravel and wail. With the addition of Comeo, we also get more backup/harmony vocals in the mix. Godlike has that punkish groove the band has always held fast to. The album overall showcases many aspects of the band's developing yet consistent sound. Hardcore elements even appear on this effort. Certifiable reaffirms that Blitz is indeed so. So after 3 crushers, you're asking, why so low on the list? After this breakneck start of the album, things began to wane a bit. It's definitely a front-loaded affair. Much of The Killing Kind feels a bit plodding, if not lost in mid-tempo meandering. Number 14. Nate, I have mine at number 8 for The Killing Kind.
I'm at number 12.
Bing has it at 14. Then we have 13, 11, 16, 18, and 17. Wow, those are some deep numbers back on that tail end there. Now, this is one of those albums that I am surprised does not get more love. And as I was going through this, I had an epiphany. I was nearing the end of my marriage. I didn't know it yet at the time, but I had been going through a lot of shit and a lot of feelings and a lot of just like, is there a way to salvage the marriage and all that stuff? Just all the stuff you go through when there's this kind of personal turmoil. And this album helped get me through, and I think that's why it sits high on my list. I have it at the highest at number 8. And whenever I see people talk about this album, it surprises the hell out of me. But now that I realize my connection to this album, that explains to me why I have much more affinity for this album than other Overkill fans. So now I understand it. And that was an epiphany with doing this list. What are your thoughts on Killing Kind, Nate?
Well, it contains a song that I think is up there with some of the best Overkill songs of all time, and that is Burn You Down to Ashes. I fucking love that song. I continually put it on metal playlists. yeah, I just really, really dig that one. And the other song on that album that I really like is Let Me Shut That For You.
Yes, that's a good one.
Just the
too.
attitude in the title alone is good. You know it's going to be kick-ass.
I can't believe that Rustin didn't care. Because he does rattle off those first three, Battle, Godlike, and Certifiable. But then he's like, and after that, it kind of takes a nosedive. It's like, Burn You Down to Ashes. Fuck, man, that is one of the best Overkill songs of all time. You know, you definitely have to include it in the conversation at least.
Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't mention that.
Yes. And I could see, you know, for me, boy, I want to say the last one, two, yeah. It kind of trails off. There's a couple of stinkers in the mix. That Feeding Frenzy instrumental, that could have been completely taken off the album. And the morning after Private Bleeding, that was a little bit of that's a weak song on the album as well. But again, these are songs I wouldn't skip.
I think Burn You Down to Ashes is what grabbed me on this album initially. I mean, I think that was the song that was like, oh shit, I got to listen more carefully to this one.
Yeah, that impetus. Yes, I completely understand.
All these ones that came out in the 90s, I basically came back around to these when we had a previous discussion about Overkill on one of our episodes a while back, handful of years ago.
Yeah, well, I wonder if that was when we were track by track on Wings of War.
Well, we've done that, but we also had a full discography discussion about Overkill, and we had it broken up into segments.
Oh, that's right. We did the underrated series for Overkill.
Yeah.
That is right. Yeah, we broke it up into 3 episodes and kind of locked in the early years until a certain point, and then from that point there was the middle years, and then everything up to whatever that year was that we did that, which I think was all pre Wings of War. And I wonder where we left off on that one.
I can't remember how long ago it was, but anyways, that's what that was when I dove into these 90s Overkill albums.
Yeah, awesome. I've digged the 90s output, and obviously maybe not as much as others, or maybe more than others, but it's all part of the beauty that is Overkill.
At number 13, we've got Killbox 13 from 2003. Unlike the majority of Overkill records, Killbox 13 did not open with the true kick down the door, fist to the gut assault. In fact, one of the album's weakest songs, Devil by the Tail, opens it up. Fortuitously, the album improves from there. The album finds the band returning to more of its thrash wheelhouse, though elements of the nu metal groove sound appear on tracks like Until I Die and Crystal Clear. In the Save the Best for Last mold, Overkill cranked it the hardest on the album's final 3 tracks, Struck Down, Unholy, and I Rise. The trio serves as speedy whirlwind onslaughts of thrash goodness. One of the only backloaded albums in the band's catalog.
13, all right. Where do you got Killbox 13?
I have this at number 20. I have this at my worst ranking spot.
Aha. I've got this close to you, Nate. I'm at 17. Bing has it at 18. Then we hit Loudwire with number 8. But wait, there's more, Nate. Mr. Rictus Grin has it at number 5. Ranker has it at 14. P-Cells has it at 14. And the most confusing review possible ever, Pair of Jeans Reviews has this as number 3, Nate. Top.
With no explanation?
Well, there's a video if you want to go see it. I'll have a link in the show notes.
Wow, with somebody's that far outside of I would be very curious to hear what their argument is.
Well, when it all shakes out, the album comes down to number 14, which is pretty close.
Why does anybody in the 90s that had any kind of groove element to their music have to be related to nu metal? You know what I'm saying? It always seems like that comes up. Overkill does not have any nu metal elements. I mean, people even try to say that about Slayer's Diablos and Musica. It's like, it's not a fucking nu metal record. You know what I mean? The final ranking was at 14, you said?
Yes. The new worked out ranking is number 14. And I think it's, that Pair of Jeans Reviews having it number 3. Damn. Although then again, he got it close to where Rustin has it at number 13. So as far as once the rankings all finish out. So 14's pretty close to the original list. Although I have a feeling that might be changing once he gets scorched in there. Up next at number 12 is 1993's I Hear Black. This is by far the hardest album to judge among Overkill's studio works. Here's the problem. It's a damn good album, but it's not very Overkill. In fact, but for Blitz's readily identifiable vocals, one might assume this were another band. The album followed its iconic masterpieces, Years of Decay and Horoscope, so instead of trying to top those, they took a sharp left turn into new territory. This opened the door for the band's much maligned groove-heavy 90s era. Creatively, this may be the band's most diverse effort, and for that alone, it bears returned excursions to appreciate it as a notable exception, a diversion in the band's trademark sound. The metal world as a whole was in disarray and being crushed under the boot of grunge. Many bands shifted focus to adapt to some degree, and even Overkill was not immune, and in that regard, I Hear Black is remarkably better than what many of their contemporaries were dishing out. I Hear Black, number 12, Nate, on Rustin's list. Where do you have I Hear Black?
I'm at number 13.
I think I'm going to be the outlier here, Nate. I have this at number 6. Bing has it at 12. Yeah.
You've talked about it over the years.
And maybe it was another one of those good years for me. I don't know. Yeah, I know I have an affinity. This is one that I know that gets slagged a bit, but I also know that there are people like me that say this is a kick-ass Overkill album, even though, yeah, it is a little bit of the black sheep or the redheaded stepchild of the catalog in a fashion. I think it kicks all sorts of ass, and I enjoy this one. But I obviously enjoyed it the most. Here's the other ones. Bing has it 12. Loudwire has it 17 out of 19. Yuck. Although Music Grid has it at number 18 out of 20. Mr. Rick Discrin, I said that wrong. Then we have a 13, a 16, and a 13. When it all shakes out, Nate, that puts I Hear Black to number 15 of 20. Ouch.
I gotta say, since this guy brought this up, he's relating groove to new metal, and now he's talking about grunge and how a lot of metal bands were struggling during the 90s because of grunge. And I know that this is a very generalized thing that's been talked about for a long time. But the deal is grunge came in and disrupted the whole fucking hair metal scene, which was garbage. And any music that had any kind of weight to it was going to topple that garbage. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's not like Pantera was one of the biggest metal bands in the world during the 90s.
Yes.
Was not grunge or new metal. Do you know what I'm saying? Overkill continued to put out kick-ass music and not sounding outside of Overkill. Slayer, all kinds of good death metal bands, all kinds of good black metal bands. There's all kinds of good metal that happened in the 90s.
Yes.
It's just that grunge took out some of the shitty music that had just that deserved to be taken out of the scene. You know what I mean?
Well, and some bands did take chances and it paid off, and some bands took chances and put out less than this stellar material. You know, there was still good stuff coming out that were, you know, bands taking chances like Testament and, Megadeth, kind of. Creator, not so much, from what I understand. I've never really got in their 90s catalog, but it seems like they lost a lot of their fan base during those years. And Anthrax, new vocalist, and they went with a new sound, got away from thrash, but there are times they still had thrashy elements.
They broke away from thrash in a tasteful way.
Yeah.
The sound of White Noise was pretty awesome.
Hell yes.
I'm a little heartbroken by this next ranking, I'm not going to lie. Number 11, we've got Under the Influence from 1988. This was my introduction to Overkill. I know it seems like blasphemy to have this ranked low here, but it had to go somewhere, and as it is the least of the band's earliest efforts, this is the spot. Under the Influence features one of the band's true classic anthems in Hello from the Gutter, and gets its kickstart from an album opener, Shred. After 2 classic albums to open its career, Overkill shifted to a somewhat mainstream thrash sound, eschewing some of their hardcore punk elements. This result makes for an album that appears to be trying a bit too hard to play with the big boys. Metal insecurity. It happens when you have a label and big names trying to push you in a certain direction. The production is lacking on most levels as well, which didn't help, and Blitz seemed a little unmoored vocally.
Nate, I have in Under the Influence at number 4.
I have it at number 2, and I was surprised actually that it was in number 2. I had another album in mind that I thought would be there, but after listening to them and ranking them and giving it some consideration, man, there's just so many good ones on here. But hearing Shred for the first time, when I was like 14 years old, I was fucking just in love immediately.
Nice. Well, here's the rest of the rankings, how they shake out. Started at number 11. But here's the thing, Nate. He's not alone. There are others who you'll find here that feel the same way. You had it number 2. I had number 4. Bing has it number 4. Loudwire has it at 10. Rick Discrin at number 8. Ranker at number 6. Peace Sells at number 7, and Blue Jean Reviews has it number 10. So you get a little bit of diversity with the rankings, but there are people who feel the same way that Rustin felt. But when it all shakes down, Nate, the overall new rank from 1 to 20 is number 5. A vast improvement over number 11, where Rustin has it.
I can live with it being in the top 5. And I agree, the production on it is an unfortunate aspect of having to listen to that album.
Yes.
But the songs are so strong on there. I mean, they really are.
All right, so we're breaking into the top 10. Of course, again, we started with only 19 because Scorched isn't on the list, but we'll discuss that here in a while. But at number 10 from 1997, it's from the Underground and Below. Launched just a year after The Killing Kind, Overkill dove headfirst into the Pantera groove machine with nods to Nola Sludge. For that reason, much like I Hear Black, it's difficult to assess where the album lands in the band's ranked arsenal. It's a fucking crusher of a record, as evidenced from the album opener, It Lives. That said, it diverts away significantly from the band's thrash foundation and early punk-laden roots. One might even suggest the album gives nods to nu metal, albeit with a more aggressive and corrosive delivery. From the Underground and Below, for most Overkill fans, is of the acquired taste variety, but the record has some great tracks including Save Me, Half Past Dead, Rip and Tear, and Little Bit O' Murder. Number 10, Nate, where do you have Underground?
I have that at number 9.
Oh, I have this at number 16. This falls to the back end of my rankings. You have it at number 9. Bing has it at 15. Loudwire, 12. Rictus Grin, 9. Ranker, 12. Peace Sells, 13. And Pair of Jeans Reviews has it at number 8. So we have some diversity in the rankings there, Nate, but when it all shakes down, this one goes to number 12.
I think this has their attempt at a ballad on it, Promises, which I think is a really good song. And the song It Lives and Half Past Dead are both standout songs for me. And I wanted to mention that I listened to a clip of an interview with Bobby Blitz, and they asked him, like, what are his standout albums from their own career. And he listed 4. I'll just mention them as we go through the list when we come up on the albums, but this was one of them. And what he had said is that similar to like a Sabbath album where you put it on and you're going to listen to it from front to back, he feels that this is that album for them. It's a very cohesive album and one that you're going to put on and listen to from front to back. Out of their whole catalog, this was one of the top 4 that Blitz picked out. At number 9, we have White Devil Armory from 2014. For the next few albums, it really feels like splitting hairs in determining rank. The band's middle tier of albums is all pretty solid and fairly equal. I placed White Devil Armory at the end of this tier because it feels like the least of these affairs. After the brilliant thrash comeback of 2010's Ironbound, the band dropped 2 more albums which followed that template with Electric Age and White Devil Armory. Neither is as impactful as Ironbound. When you're this good, you simply cannot top yourself every record. That's a great statement. After tossing out the somewhat pointless intro XDM, the thrash hurricane begins with Ernest with The Armorist. And then the storm of wrecking crew aggression takes control. Bernie brings his A-game on this one, highlighted by tracks like Bitter Pill. 2 of the album's many highlights includes King of the Rat Bastards and the playful raucous anthem, The Fight Song, which is a bonus track.
Actually, I like XDM. But that's a good one for the live show. That's the purpose of why it's there. When they came out to that for the tour, it was just kind of a build the momentum. Here comes Overkill, lights are down, and you're about to just get your ass kicked with the kick-ass show.
Is that the one I seen with you at the Caboose?
No, that was... Wait a minute, shit.
Or was that the Grinding Wheel tour?
Wings of War was at the Caboose, I think.
It's the only time I've seen Overkill, but I can't remember the album they were touring.
Or was it the Grinding Wheel? Yeah, crap, no, I don't remember.
I remember Nile opened for them.
That was Grinding Wheel, 2017 tour, or somewhere on there, yeah. So he's got White Devil Armory at number 9. Nate, I have it at number 12.
I have it at number 19.
Ouch! Holy shit! Out of 20. Damn.
Man, the albums they were doing just before this and then after it, this one just when I went back and listened to it, I'm like, this one just falls flat for me compared to the excitement of the albums just before it and just after it.
Yeah, no shit. 19. Hot damn. Bing has this at number 7. Then we have a 9, 7, 8, 9, and 11. When it all shakes down, that comes to a final ranking of number 10 out of 20. Nate be damned.
Yeah, somebody's got to throw a wrench in the plan.
I think that was a grower album for me, and the same with this one that we're about to talk about. Is like with repeated listens, they just kept getting stronger and stronger. Speaking of the next one, that is at number 8, 2012's The Electric Age. Refer to my previous Splitting Hairs comment. A step down from Ironbound, but not dissimilar in thrash bombast, The Electric Age continues the juggernaut assault of its predecessor. The album opens with the 1-2 punch of Come and Get It and Electric Rattlesnake, and if you're not bitten and enthralled at this point, you don't know your thrash. The band has regained its footing, and here they demonstrate their renewed confidence and assertiveness. Tracks like Save Yourself, Drop the Hammer, and 21st Century Man are modern classics for the band. I would argue that this decade, beginning with Ironbound and through Wings of War, is the group's most impressive and strongest era. Age, wisdom, and relentless dedication are paying huge dividends. Electric Age, he has at number 8. Nate, I have it at number 10.
I have it at number 11.
Bing has it at 6. Loudwire 7. Mr. Rictus Grin has it as almost his worst album at number 19. Ranker 7. Then we have a 6 and a 12. When it all shakes down, that brings it to a number 9 with the final scoring. So definitely cracking the top 10. When you look at a band with a catalog like this, and they have an album that was released in 2012 in their top 10 in our master list, that's saying something. But wait, there's more.
Yeah, I mean it's amazing how it's amazing how much success they're having with these kick-ass albums here this far into their career for sure.
Every other metal band should be embarrassed that they can't do what Overkill is currently doing in their careers.
Yeah, well said. I like this stuff as much as I like the stuff in the 80s. You know what I mean?
You know what? I'm going to let you on a secret, Nate. When I first started this endeavor, I was, I think, tanking some of these later albums because they were getting such high scores. I'm like, well, this can't compete with like the band's classic stuff. And then I stopped doing that. I stopped fucking myself over. I'm like, no, I need to give these albums proper ranking, and where they fall in my top 1 to 20 is where they fall because they fucking earned it.
If I didn't have so much nostalgic attachment to the early stuff, any of these later albums could have, if I was just hearing this band fresh and going through this, or I was a newer fan, didn't have all those attachments from back then, any of these later albums could definitely be in the top. They're just as catchy, as heavy, maybe even heavier, just because music has changed so much since back then. And also, Bobby's vocals early on were more vocals, where now he's like, because I'm sure he's older and he can't really have some of that operatic type vocal pitches. He's got to rough it up a little bit, but he's got it down, and it sounds really fucking evil with the way he does it. Well,
somewhere, was it in late, early 90s, I think? Maybe it was a post I Hear Black. He started to gargle gravel as part of his ritual in the mornings. So that kind of helps add a little bit of a rasp to his voice.
They're so heavy they eat fucking dirt.
Yeah. Chew gravel.
All right, number 7, we've got The Grinding Wheel from 2017. Another Overkill album and another rampaging assault to open the album with Mean Green Killing Machine and the Mosh Pit Waltz, Goddamn Trouble. How in the hell is Overkill not in the Big Four? With The Grinding Wheel, Overkill begins breaking the template they forged in 2010's Ironbound, adding in new elements and bringing back a bit of their 90s groove in a manner that fits their modern sound. Let's All Go to Hades has a tasty mix of thrashiness, groove, and classic rock foundation, while Red, White, and Blue has a blitzkrieg of sonic aggression. Everything fits nicely together here, from Blitz's venomous delivering to Vernie's marrow vibrating bass to punchy riffs and Lipnicki's steady stick work. It's a lot of fucking words here at the end of this. Is there anything negative to say about this album? It would be the 1 hour plus running time, which feels a bit bloated.
Where do you have Grinding Wheel on your collection, Nate?
I got this at number 8.
I am surprised to say this. I have Grinding Wheel at number 5. It cracked my top 5.
That's awesome. It's a really kick-ass album.
Yes, I was shocked. This is one of those albums that I was deducting points by not giving it its due, and then I realized, you know what? I had to go back. Basically, I had to re-listen to everything from Ironbound on. Not Ironbound. Let's say Electric Age. I re-listened to everything and then started my rankings over because I realized I was sandbagging the scores and unnecessarily, just stupidly. It was asinine. I caught myself doing it. I shamed myself. I put myself in the corner for a timeout, and then I proceeded to fix my mistake.
This one's killer, and I think that the closing song being the Grinding Wheel is such an epic closing song. I think that the bonus of having Emerald as a cover, as a bonus track, takes away from how epic it is to just close with the Grinding Wheel.
Agreed.
Though that cover is a really good cover.
Right. It just, you basically teed up the end of the album right there. If they had slotted that somewhere in the middle, that would have definitely helped. So that way you go out with just people with their goosebumps after that song finishes.
Definitely.
So the scores are 7, 5, 8 for Nate, 9, 16 from Loudwire. Fuck you. Mr. Rictus Grin has it at 14. I guess I could say fuck you to him too. Ranker at number 11. P-Cells at number 10. And another fuck you goes out to Paragene Reviews for a 15 score. When it all shakes out, this one comes in at number 11 on the new and improved list. Apparently only a few of us thought this was top 10 material, Nate.
Yeah, it's an awesome album. And it gets hard in the top 10 to fucking figure out which is where, you know?
Yes. Things are getting interesting going forward here, Nate, because we're getting close to the top 5.
I know. There's some good ones coming up here, too. These are the ones, a lot of them that I grew up on, you know?
Coming in at number 6 is 1987's Taking Over. Overkill's sophomore album revealed a more thrash-infused sound than their debut effort, Feel the Fire. The album saw slightly better production than its debut and garnered major label distribution. Bobby Gustafson's distorted thrash sound got its due after the thin sound of Taking Over's predecessor. Rat Skates provided a sturdier performance, though he remains perhaps the band's weakest stick wielder to date. While not quite as raw as the debut album, it showcases more aggression. Blitz sounds great, though he still has not found his unique vocal groove, and his lyrical output still needed time to develop. There is almost a sense that John Zazula tried to force the band into being something of a Metallica clone. The album art for Taking Over may be among the most ridiculous of the era, but it had a sense of fun in hindsight. I would agree with a lot of what he just said there. Taking Over at number 6, Nate. I'm just going to rip the scab off of this baby. I have Taking Over out of my top 10 at number 13.
Holy buckets. Time to close the show.
This will be our final episode, folks. You're witnessing history after almost 10 years of podcasting.
Oh, my God. 13. I have this at number 3, and I thought for sure this would have been my number 2, but alas, it is number 3 for me.
Well, you'll be glad to hear that Bing ranks it at number 2, as does Loudwire. Rictus Grin has it at number 12, so him and I finally found some common ground. Ranker, number 3. P-Cells at number 2. And Pair of Jeans Reviews has it number 4. So the final ranking on this one is number 3 out of Overkill's 20. So you'd be glad to know, Nate, that I couldn't sync it with my 13 and Mr. Rictus Grin with his 12.
Yeah, this is just such a killer album. This was the second album I got into after I got under the influence, worked my way backwards, and then Years of Decay came out. Yes, indeed. I wouldn't pick this out as their weakest drumming. I guess I never thought of it that way.
Well, one thing you have to appreciate is the guys that they had filling that seat throughout all of their years have been kick-ass drummers. So as far as comparisons, I would agree.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like average sounding, and it's really heavy. I do agree on some of the lyrics on this one are kind of funny, like Use Your Head. But I love Wrecking Crew, Deny the Cross, Electroviolence. You know, there's There's a lot of really good ones on here. This is one that I still listen to. Like, if I'm just like, hey, I'm in the mood for Overkill, I will often still grab this one first. Oh, here's an exciting one. You ready for number 5?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
It is Ironbound from 2010.
Yes.
Hands down, one of the greatest albums in the Overkill catalog, and it stands as the record which broke through a decade of lethargy and complacency for the band and fans. It's Overkill in overdrive. The title track alone is arguably one of the band's 5 most brilliant songs ever. The album,
Amen.
ominously weighty opener, The Green and Black, sets it off nicely. Bring Me the Night is pure Motorhead on steroids fuel, and the riffs. The record is packed with some of their best all the way through the Juggernaut album closer, the SRC. There's a reason every album since Ironbound's release is compared to this later era benchmark. Excellent production, fantastic performances, and a strong amount of diversity, all within the signature Overkill mold. I know you're a big fan of this one.
I am. Where do you want me to go on it first, or do you want to tell me what you got?
I'm at number 7.
Number 7. Holy buckets, you're not even in your top 5. I have this, and I'm not, actually, this does rank higher than where I have it. I have it at number 3. This is my 3rd favorite Overkill release. Bing has it at 10, which is shocking. That is shocking. How did the AI got it at number 10? Nobody's got it ranked like that. Loudwire has it at 6. Mr. Rictus Grin has it as his 2nd favorite Overkill album. Ranker has it at number 4. P-Cells has it at number 4. And Pair of Jeans has it at number 7. And when the final scores all shake out, Nate, it comes in at number 4 out of 20.
That's a strong one. This is another one of Bobby's top albums in their career. And he recognizes that it was like a resurgence or whatever.
Yeah, I just remember cracking the shrink wrap on this and listening to this and going, what the fuck? Well, this is Overkill. Like, yeah, it's just upper echelon output. Just you can't deny it. I'm surprised if anybody thinks less of the album, but damn, I have to agree with everything that Rustin put in this piece. I can't say anything better than what he has it at. I just remember I just kept listening to going, oh my God. It's like magic. It's like, how did you guys find this after how many goddamn years and how many damn albums? You put out one of your best albums in 2010.
And have continued to do it.
Yes.
Pretty much every album since.
Yep. And I do the same thing that he mentions, like everything that's been released after this, that's my first instinct. How is it comparing to Ironbound? I don't go any further back. I don't care about anything previous to that. I may, get some of the early or some of the 80s material and kind of think about that as well. But yeah, that benchmark, they set that whole new benchmark with this release.
And you have bands like Metallica that take like 8 years to come out with a new album, and then when it does, it's just as fucking average as the one before.
Well, this is a surprise to me, Nate. Number 4, we have 1989's The Years of Decay. I'm shocked at that, Nate, but here we go. The trademark Blitz vocals begin to emerge with the group's 4th album, The Years of Decay. Oh, so that's when he started doing the gravel morning ritual. It's not surprising as the group establishes its own voice that they released their 2 greatest records back to back. It would be the band's last album as a quartet and the last to feature guitarist Bobby Gustafson. The combo of Blitz, Verney, Gustafson, and drummer Sid Falk created a genuine thrash masterpiece with The Years of Decay. Terry Date came on board to produce, so naturally the sound fucking slayed. The album delivered classics like Elimination, Birth of Tension, Evil Never Dies, I Hate, and the behemoth Sabbathy classic Playing with Spiders / Skull Crusher. When I was initially sketching out these rankings, Years of Decay came into argument for first or second place, but ultimately, I have to admit, to some degree, Overkill still seemed to be inadvertently chasing Metallica here. And while I applaud the experimentation Overkill began with this album, 3 drawn-out 8-minute-plus epics made the album lag a bit. I'm going to completely disagree with that whole statement there, Nate. Years of Decay, he's got it at number 4, which feels very sacrilege to me, especially after how much he talked it up. I have it as my number 1.
It's number 1 for me as well.
Well, we're not alone, Nate, because we have Bing AI has it number 1. Loudwire, number 1. Rictus Grin, number 3. Ranker, number 1. P-Cells at number 3. And Paragene's Reviews at number 2. But when you average out all the scores, it takes the number 1 slot as the best Overkill album.
So the comparison to Metallica is funny, I thought, especially on this album, because Bobby Gustafson in the Elimination video looks like he could be James Hetfield. I think he's even playing the same type of guitar. Got the wristband, long blonde hair. I'm just like, I mean, way back then I remember thinking that this guy's, trying to mimic Hetfield.
Well, then they had that black and white video, and Metallica would kind of steal that idea with the cover, not the cover, but their photos for the Black Album, where they had it kind of like that Metallica grayed out look with the 4 band members. So Overkill's influencing Metallica here, damn it.
They're the trendsetters.
I know that's a reach.
But man, I listened to this album so much. Like this and South of Heaven I had a group of friends. We used to drive around and get high all the time together. It was this album or that album that was being played most of the time. And man, I still listen to this one a lot. Yeah, I wanted to say about Bobby Gustafson too. I follow him on social media, and he, he's like the ex-girlfriend, and he's all still crying about not being in Overkill. And he's commented on how, none of their albums have been as good as the ones, from when he was in the band, and some of the fanboys jump in there and they agree. And I'm like, that is so fucking wrong because first of all, he's not in the band anymore, and he's never went on to do anything great ever. I mean, he did Satan's Taint or something, some ridiculous fucking band name. No matter how good he is, it's like, who could even take that seriously? I think he did a little dabble with Violence or Forbidden. I think he was just maybe in one of those bands recently. But anyways,
Violence, yeah.
Look at what Overkill has went on to do since he left, and are now even way late in their career having like some of their best albums ever. How can he even go on to keep saying that? It's just ridiculous. So anyways, just wanted to mention that. But yeah, this is just such a killer fucking album. And that song Skull Crusher was some slow, heavy shit back in the day. Wasn't a lot of bands doing that type of metal.
Yes. Yeah, and they were detuned, and they were playing with different tunings, and yeah, bands were doing that. A lot of the thrash bands just decided, well, it's everything at either standard tuning or half step down, and that's the album. Yeah, you had mentioned Bobby looking like James. I think Gustafson came out on the record, if I'm not mistaken, and I'm feeling pretty confident about this statement I'm about to make, Nate, that he influenced Hetfield to pick up the Gibson Explorer. Because remember, Hetfield was playing a lot of V's back in the early Metallica days.
Yeah.
And then they they go to the East Coast. They're seeing other bands, Anthrax, Overkill, and stuff. All of a sudden, here's Gustafson with his Gibson.
I'm just starting to feel like Metallica's not original at all.
Well, yeah, Dave Mustaine had to write a bunch of their hits, right?
He got them started. Bobby Gustafson helped him with their picking the guitars later on. And I did just see an article, since we're just briefly want to mention this, that who was the producer of Metallica there in the Black Album? Was that Bob Rock?
Bob Rock.
Apparently, he told Lars that if they wanted to be as big as Def Leppard, they have to ditch the thrashy sound. And I didn't read the article, but I'm curious now if there was some producer influence that got them to change their direction like that.
Well, you know what? He said that Metallica came to him and wanted to change their sound. And so he said, I had no influence on that. They just wanted my sound, how I recorded like Dr. Feelgood and stuff like that, especially the drums. And so they came to me, and I didn't point them in a direction or change anything. So he's talking out of both sides of his face, it sounds like.
Well, that's what I've always heard too. And then I just seen this headline. So I didn't read it yet. I think I saved it to look at it later. But anyways, back to Overkill. All right. So we thoroughly discussed number 1, which they had at number 4. And we're at number 3 now, The Wings of War, 2019. It almost seems like heavy metal heresy to plant Overkill's newest effort this high on the list, but it is simply that fucking good. As strongly as the band kickstarted this decade with Ironbound, they closed it with another mammoth beast of an album. The Wings of War is a declarative statement to the world. We're not fucking around, and we're not close to hanging it up the jeans and engineer boots. Right from the crushing opening salvo of The Last Man Standing, it's clear Overkill is pit ready. Head of a Pin is one of the group's finest songs to date, and Batshit Crazy is a calling card anthem that should have been written 3 decades ago. Welcome to the Garden State is a reminder of the band's punk rock roots and sense of humor, while Where Few Dare to Walk is a menacing, groove-fueled bruiser. The Wings of War is pure thrash ear candy from front to back.
Top 3. Nate, it didn't make my top 5. I got it at number 7.
I have it at number 5.
Aha. We also have a number 8. Number 4 with Loudwire. This one is embarrassing. Mr. Rick Disgrin has Wings of War as his worst Overkill album at number 20. That's embarrassing. Ranker has it number 10. Then we have a 12. And we finish off with Pair of Jeans at number 6. When it's all said and done, when the smoke clears, Nate, it finishes at number 8 out of 20.
Yeah, Head of a Pin and Batshit Crazy are both just fucking killer songs.
Yeah, this one I could see easily with even more listens. I have a feeling this one could work its way into my top 5 without a doubt. But then again, I don't know. I have to look at my top 5. It's like, what do you pull out a top 5 to put it in? That's the tough thing with all of this. Damn it.
I hear you. It's tough.
It is tough. Second to last, at number 2, as far as the list, we still have 3 albums to discuss. But at number 2, from Metal Nation and the author Rustin Rose, is Feel the Fire from 1985. The band's debut is simply an early thrash masterpiece. Full metal riot gear cranked up on 10, blistering with high energy and unbridled sense of fun. Feel the Fire suffers some of the production flaws that many thrash bands endured in the 80s, but for raw aggression and enthusiasm, you cannot beat this record. The album leans more into the speed metal wheelhouse than thrash, but the roots are there. Blitz's vocals are more strident and less nasally and wailing as we come to identify the Overkill sound with. There is an unbridled, spontaneous sense to this record, and the high-quality riffs are a highlight, though Carl Kennedy's production muted them greatly. Had they experienced some better support, production, and good fortune, there is no doubt Feel the Fire would have pushed Overkill into the Big Four conversation. Feel the Fire is an essentially early thrash starter kit. And Nate, before you give yours, I'm going to give you mine because I was going to break your heart. I have Feel the Fire at number 14, just below Taking Over. Where do you got it?
I have this at number 6.
Bing has it number 5. Loudwire number 5. Mr. Rictus Grin 17. So worse than I thought. Ranker at number 5. P Cells number 5. Paragene Reviews number 5. So when the smoke all clears, Nate, this album finishes at number 6. Your score.
Perfect. I
So
thought
still
this
in the
one
top
would have been
10.
higher up too in my list, but some of those newer albums they come out with bumped it. You weren't really into thrash in these earlier times, correct?
That's correct. It wouldn't be until Master of Puppets.
Yeah. So I could see how some of these earlier, maybe not even just with Overkill, but some of the other bands that had these earlier sounding thrash, because like Slayer sounded a lot different before Rain and Blood. It was more reminiscent of like this style of thrash, you know.
Yeah.
Killing Is My Business.
Yes.
There's just a lot of classic Overkill songs on Feel the Fire. That's a good one. This is another one that Bobby had mentioned out of the 4 albums that he mentioned was Feel the Fire. It's kind of their jump off point.
Nice.
All right, at
We got
number one, we have Horror Scope from 1991. Was there ever really any doubt which Overkill album would grab the top spot? On the heels of the band's defiantly powerful effort, The Years of Decay, the band came back with its seminal work, Horoscope. Horoscope marks the band's first album as a quintet with guitarists Merrick Gant and Rob Canavino after the departure of Gustafson. Any concern about a weakening in songwriting is laid to rest on the album opener, Coma. The album turned out to be Overkill's most mature album and offered a fair amount of diversity by Overkill standards, but proved they were certainly a thrash force to be reckoned with. Blitz finally began crafting stronger lyrical content, and his vocal style continued to come into its own. Songs like Buzzsaw Thrashers, Blood Money, Thanks for Nothing, and the darkly atmospheric Solitude are among the band's most enduring tracks. Yet one cannot overlook the brilliance of tracks like Nice Day for a Funeral and Bare Bones. The title cut Horoscope outdooms some of the great purveyors of the genre. Vernie's bass is simply evil. The album is packed with chunky riffage, and they still maintain their punk ethos, even as they decimate with their plotting moments of crushing trituration. This is the album that truly anchored the band's sound and style. While the rest of the 90s, they would, like their contemporaries, play with other elements of groove hardcore and even hints of nu metal, Horoscope would be the foundation from which bands would so often return.
This was almost my number one. I know throughout the recording of this podcast, since we started at Nate, up until about 3 years ago, Horoscope was always my number one. And then eventually, I kind of did a back-to-back comparison, and I did like a personal ranking, and realized that it was my number two. And that's where it falls on this list. Stays at number two. It's still a strong album for me. I love it.
This was the one that initially got you interested in Overkill, is that correct?
That is correct, yes. I remember seeing the video for elimination of stuff, and then I was working at a parking lot security job where I'd walk the parking lot and I could listen to headphones, which is weird because I'm security. I should be listening for shit going down. But they let us do it. Of course, we were on third shift, so it wasn't a big deal, I guess, maybe in their minds. Then the dispatcher whom I become friends with, and he was a metal fan, Terry Rice, he put this cassette in my hand and said, go listen to this album. And I proceeded to walk that parking lot, and the tentacles of Overkill got in from my headphones into my brain and just started to take hold. From this point forward, I would become a fan of the band. I would go to the earlier works. And actually, the first three albums, it took a while for those ones to really click with me. And I'd say Under the Influence was the first one that started that process as far as those first three albums. But I was a big fan, I was a big fan in the 90s. Of course, I didn't realize it. I was going to the shows, I was buying their stuff, and I was buying shirts. I just didn't realize that they were slowly forcing Metallica out of my top bands, my top 5 band fandoms. And they completely took hold of it until I'd say roughly 1999 or 2001, somewhere in that wheelhouse. A friend of mine, I was talking up the new Overkill album or something like that, or I was telling him, you got to check out Overkill's works since Horoscope, because I think that friend had fallen off. And he just stopped the conversation at one point and said, man, you're really a big Overkill fan. I'm like, no, they're just good. Oh, shit. Yeah, they are. They are one of my favorite bands. Son of a bitch. And then they come out with Ironbound, Nate, and just show every fucking band on the planet how it's done. But yeah, Horoscope, still my number 2, my intro to the band. And for that, I am supremely grateful. And of course, I am grateful to Terry Rice for putting that cassette in my hand and making me go listen to it, because it wasn't long after that I bought that. And then it's just, it's happiness from that point forward, Nate. Where do you have Horoscope?
I have it at number 10.
Ouch.
I want to say, I used to like that Frankenstein cover that they do on there, back when it came out, and now I can't stand it. Either, not the original or the cover. I'm like, damn, this is just like a blemish on this record.
I have to agree. That is the weak point of the record. I'm surprised that it didn't get brought up in the review here, or the write-up that from Rustin. I'm surprised, but maybe he enjoys it, or maybe he just thought he'd just skip over that. But number 10, Nate. Ouch.
Hey, it's in my top 10.
It is. Well, Bing has it number 3, Loudwire number 3, Mr. Rictus Grin has it number 1, Ranker number 2, P-Cells at number 1, Pair of Jeans Reviews has it at number 1, but when the smoke clears, Nate, this one falls to number 2 out of 20. Still ain't shabby, though, by any means.
Yeah, no doubt. This was the other album that Bobby Blitz called out as one of the standouts of the career, and he specifically said they had a change in songwriting from Gustafson and Vernie to being Vernie as the primary songwriter, and they came out with a really strong album.
Yeah, and that's a good point that Rustin did make, was you lost like a core songwriting person, but he was also unwilling to work with Dee Dee. I think he wanted to be like the main control guy, and like it was going to be his band. And eventually there became a falling out where Blitz was basically told, pick. Are you going to work with Dee Dee or are you going to work with Bobby? Because the band's not going to last with those two in the same band.
And went the right direction, because
Yeah, I think
Time has
history
shown.
has proved he made the right choice.
Absolutely.
He could have probably sang vocals on Satan's Taint if he was asked.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah, there's been some talk about the Big Four in here, and I think we should revise the Big Four to you have to be a band that is still playing thrash music.
It's the 80s Big Four, so we have to clarify that. I think every time we bring up the Big Four, we'll say, the 80s Big Four of Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, and Anthrax.
Yeah, let's revise that list. Let's get a movement going.
Well, I'd say if you're going to revisit if you're going to cut them off at the 80s and go into the 90s, well, what year was that? Was 91, wasn't it? Yeah. Rust in Peace.
Oh, Rust in
What
Peace.
year was Rust in Peace?
1990.
So there you go. So let's say that's the cutoff point. Once you get into the 90s. So Anthrax is no longer a thrash band. Or wait, no, they had Persistence of Timer at that point. That's right.
I think
But then you have Overkill. You have Testament.
you could just simplify it by saying you have to be playing thrash still to be considered to be in the Big Four of thrash music.
But then you'd have to break that off then, because you get to 1990 whatever, and then Megadeth drops off.
Yeah.
But Overkill doesn't.
The thing about Megadeth, though, is they have continued to go back to thrash. They've had
Yeah.
a couple albums where it wasn't. But
Metallica's
overall,
tried.
they did kind of, Metallica turned away from it. Even I wouldn't even consider any of their last albums to be thrash music, honestly. So
Yeah, it's like they're borrowing from their legacy when they try to incorporate speedier moments in their songs nowadays.
they actually even kind of stand out from the other thrash bands of the Big Four back in the days of the thrash musics. You know what I'm saying? In the 80s. They even still are kind of outliers of their aggression and stuff wasn't there.
Right. Yeah, they modified their sound with every album.
I feel like they are more on
until
the edge of the thrash scene.
Well, and that's one point Rustin makes is you had the Years of Decay come out, then you had Horoscope. So instead of trying to keep up with that momentum, you curveball. And that's where you get I Hear Black. Metallica did the same thing after the Black Album. They're like, there's no way we're going to be able to top this. What are we going to do next? How about we just become a rock band, a hard rock band? All right, done. Lars doesn't have to work on being a good drummer anymore. Actually, he gave up on that on the Black Album. But he could try even less. He wanted to be the Charlie Watts of thrash metal, which, okay, I shouldn't say thrash metal. He wanted to be the Charlie Watts of the metal genre. And that's what he became. He said, I couldn't compete with Charlie Benante, and I couldn't compete with Dave Lombardo, so I became Charlie Watts. He didn't say that, but if I could do like one of those AI things and have his face say those words, that's what he would be saying is, I just wanted to be the Phil Rudd. I want to go AC/DC on a Metallica vibe.
Well, Metallica wouldn't be the size of band they are today had they continued.
Oh, no. Yeah, they softened
thrash music.
and appealed to more of the masses. Yeah, that was their journey. It's served them well. But as far as like comparing their catalog to Overkill's catalog, there's consistency isn't there.
Nope. Overkill's a standout band for pretty much any of the metal bands from back in those days that I like. I mean, there's not really any other band that has just consistently put out good album after good album. I don't know. We'd have to explore like Testament because they've dabbled in different sounds, but they've always been a pretty heavy band. And
Right.
Some of their later output's been really solid. But
Yeah, and
Testament
they write
wasn't a
kick-ass
band
ballads.
Yeah, I know. I love some of their early stuff, and their early ballads are great. But they're not like hugely high on my list of metal bands, though, either. Even though I've listened to them a lot over the years. That'll be one we'll have to check out sometime.
Well, you definitely do. That's on our list of some catalogs to visit and go worst to best on.
But we do have one more album to talk about. I almost forgot about it, actually.
Yes, we do. And that is 2023's Scorched. Now, Rustin didn't... I did reach out to him. Unfortunately, I thought about it far too late. I actually contacted him before we recorded. He was nice enough to give me a reply. And so there is not a ranking in here, so there's nothing for us to read as far as his comments yet. I do like how he writes, and I'm going to be very curious to see how he talks about Scorched. Now, this one was just released on April 14th. Nate and I, we've talked about it a little bit. Obviously, we were going to prepare immediately after the album came out so we could get a ranking for this album. Now, there's only there's 4 rankings. Of course, one of them is Bing AI. However, it got that ranking. I'm not smart enough to know. I don't know AI. But there is a ranking. We are going to be able to give it a ranking. We are going to be able to add it into the top 1 through 20. Nate, Scorched. You've been living with it for a little while now.
Yes, and it
How you
is in
feeling
my
about
top 5. It's in my number 4 spot, actually.
Holy buckets. Holy buckets. That's fucking awesome.
It's a very exciting album.
It's a good album, and it's growing stronger with me. And I'm almost embarrassed to say it's at number 11 on my list because I have a feeling it's going to climb. It's going to do what everything after after Ironbound did, and just grow stronger and stronger for me in their catalog. But as of right now, I'm leaving it at the 11th spot. But the funny thing is that's actually where Bing AI has it as a number 11 out of 20.
It's like it knew what you were thinking.
It did. Now, if you want another quirky, interesting thing, Mr. Rictus Grin has it at the same spot you have it at, Nate, number 4. That's saying something. I mean, it's not just you being a fanboy, or me in this case, but of course I'm not ranking as high as you are. There's another person out there. Now, Rustin did respond to me when I asked him about the ranking. I was hoping he'd be able to just tell me where he could slide that in there. He didn't. He said he's going to redo the ranking system. He's going to review his notes. His comments to me, his reply was, I've only taken it through one spin so far, but it's a beast. It probably would be in my top half, which reminds me it's probably time to update that article.
Yeah, it's a top 10 album. Just Twist of the Wicked Place, and Fever, just those songs alone, I mean, are just fucking amazing songs.
Yes, especially Fever. That one, when I first heard that was almost like go to the CD player because my CD arrived first. It was almost go back to the CD player and hit back because I wanted to hear it again. But I'm like, nope, I'm just going to let the album play out. But I thought, did I just hear one of the best Overkill songs ever? And then when I went to listen to it again, I'm like, holy shit, that song just grabbed me. And like I said, it's sitting at 11 right now. I could easily see this sliding into my top 5 or top 10 and edging its way towards top 5.
If it's at all possible, Bobby's vocals sound way more mean and aggressive on this album than maybe any of the other albums.
Bobby Blitz Ellsworth is like a fine wine, Nate. It gets better with age.
Yeah, it's amazing. It really is. And he did say that they took some time on this one. They put some time into it. And because they put some time into it, they really wanted it to be a strong album, and it is.
Well, yeah, it was the biggest gap, I think, in their whole history between albums because of COVID, 2019 to 2023.
Yeah, damn.
What are your thoughts on Won't Be Coming Back off of this album?
I don't have any notes on that particular song, so I wouldn't be able to speak to that one.
That one was an odd one. It's another Overkill song where I feel like they're taking chances and trying to infest isn't the right word. Just inject something different about the whole that is Overkill's sound in their catalog.
Which song?
Won't Be Coming Back. Now, I didn't rank it very high, but I did up my ranking of that individual song after repeated listens because at first I'm like, this is one of the weaker tracks on the album. But then as I was going through it, I'm like, you know what? I kind of like it a little bit more. So I ended up bumping up a little bit higher.
Yeah, it's there's some really catchy tunes on this whole album.
Yes, I would have to agree.
Let's see. I was just looking up that song. I ranked it as a 4 out of 5.
Oh, wow.
But I'm going to just say that it's placed between Twist of the Wicked Place, then there's Won't Be Coming Back, and then Fever. And those 3 songs minus Won't Be Coming Back are like my favorite songs on the whole album. So to have that tune in between there, it is a little bit of a like, what the fuck? You know, they're on a run for a second there, and then that one isn't quite in line with those other songs. But nonetheless, I gave that a 4. It looks like I ranked it a 3. Oh no, I ranked it a 3. I wrote 4/3 and I circled the 3 on that one. So that one was like the average song on that one for me.
I'd say, well, mine's 7 out of 10, so that's like a 3.5 out of 5.
Yeah.
So we're pretty close on the feeling that one. But yeah, that's a good point. They're coming at you so hard, and all of a sudden that song slips in there. And it's like, okay, well, I'd almost like to see this one, the track list revamped. I think Bag of Bones is not a good finisher. That feels like kind of like a middle to late track for me. I would like to have seen this album finish with Fever.
Yeah.
And have one of those album enders that just sends you off with like a load in your pants.
Yeah, I only had 2-3 rankings on this album, and then all the rest were 4s and 5s. But I had Bag of
How about
Bones
Bag of
as
Bones?
a 4.
A 4.
Yeah.
Wow.
Won't Be Coming Back and Going Home, the second song, are the 2 that I had ranked at 3. Twist of the Wick, Wicked Place, Fever, those are all 5s. Everything else was ranked at 4.
Needless to say, it's a pretty kick-ass album.
Yeah.
I'm looking at my list. I want to see if I could drop it in my top 10 somehow. I'd have to bump Electric Age if I just wanted to do that. Damn it. This is tough, Nate. Actually, maybe that's something we could do is rework the track listing. We could compare notes. Like if you were to retrack this album, how would you do it? And then I'll do it. And then we can compare notes like with our next A episode that we do. If you're up to doing something like that. That's actually something that Cobras of Fire would do on occasion, is they'd find albums that were just like the track listing is the sequence just wasn't quite right. So they would retrack it and then create like playlists so you could hear it in that order. I wonder if that would help even strengthen it, because like I said, I would like to see Fever wrap this album up and just send you off with goosebumps.
Well, they often do close with the pretty epic song, so I'd have to go back now and re-listen to Bag of Bones with that specific thought in mind.
I think they went Bag of Bones was kind of a fun ender type of vibe.
Sure.
Well, there you have it. So that one finishes at number 7.
You know, I think the lyrics were really good overall on this one too, and both for Wings of War. I ranked Wings of War and this one back to back, and I've got the vinyl for both. And with the vinyl, you're just hanging out. So I sat and read the lyrics as I was listening to the album, just like back in the old days when I obsessively did that with every album I bought that had lyrics in it. But lyrics are really good on this album too, across the board.
Yes.
The lyrical content is really good.
I would agree wholeheartedly. Well, Nate, here's the list. Here's how it shakes up. Once we put all the numbers together and we rank everything, reorder everything. Coming in at number 20 is Immortalis. 19, Relics 14, or Relixive, whatever the fuck you want to call that. Relics. I like how you just called it Relics, Nate. Relics at number 19. Number 18, Bloodletting. Number 17, Necroshine. Number 16, Ouch, The Killing Kind. Coming in at another ouchie for me. I feel like it should be higher. Coming in at number 15, Nate, is I Hear Black. Number 14, Killbox 13. There's no way Killbox 13 is a better album. God damn it. Coming in number 13, Wide Fucking Open. Number 12, From the Underground and Below. Number 11, The Grinding Wheel. And here we go, Nate. Top 10 Overkill ranked albums. Coming in at number 10, White Devil Armory. Number 9, The Electric Age. Number 8, The Wings of War. Number 7, with an asterisk, is Scorched, the new Overkill album, cracking the top 10. Feel the Fire rounds out the 6 through 10 group at number 6. Number 5, Under the Influence. Number 4, Ironbound. Number 3, Taking Over. Number 2, Horoscope. And number 1, The Years of Decay. I'm glad to see Ironbound in the top 5.
Yeah, it had to be.
That's saying something, man. When you look at those numbers, you look at that discography, it's bookended between a bunch of classic, strong releases and a band that's been going for so many fucking years, putting out some of their best albums back to back to back. I'm actually surprised they don't kind of sit a little bit tighter. But Ironbound on, everything's in the top 11. Ironbound at number 4, Electric Age at number 9, White Devil Armory at number 10, Grinding Wheel at number 11, Wings of War at number 8, and Scorched at number 7. Damn!
Good job, fellas.
Yeah, you got to take your hats off to a band that's putting out such kick-ass music for the last 10, 13 years and so far into their career. They're not taking a page out of Metallica's book and just trying to soften their sound and make something easier or more palatable to the masses. They are being overkill, and they are kicking ass at it. Wow, Nate, we did it. We got through. There were some tears. There was some name calling.
This one was, for as many albums as it was really fun to go through this one.
Amen. Yeah, this AC/DC was a chore. After Back in Black, everything became difficult. Overkill, for every single album, I was excited to see what the rankings would be. Personally, and once everything shook out. And to kind of compare to where you're at. Now, your early influences with those early albums, I knew that was probably factor in. But I'm glad you fucking did what I didn't do to start, which is really look at these later albums and just soak them in as individual release albums. Don't compare them to the earlier works, and see where they shake out on your complete ranking system.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how they, continue on. They don't show any signs of slowing down, so
I hope they never retire. We got to figure out how to get these guys to be immortal.
It's funny. Like Slayer, they called it. They called it a day.
That was very much Tom Araya's decision.
It's unfortunate because
Yes.
Overkill's continued. And Slayer's output isn't even as strong as Overkill's as far as number of albums.
Right.
They weren't as busy of a band that way. And Overkill tours like a lot. They're always on tour, and they're coming out with new albums. So it's they're just a hardworking group, and they're known as that. So, and for all of us that are actually fans of Overkill, we appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you very much, guys. Well, one of the things that's nice is they're not flying around on private jets buying high-priced art for their collection like a Metallica, Nate. They don't have those distractions. They're true to their art.
Yeah. I think those guys made a definite decision to want to go that direction. You know what I'm saying? The Metallica folks.
Yes. So I have a feeling I'll be curious to see once Rustin gets his ranking on the list. I'm going to kind of keep track of that. If by chance he gets it updated before we go to post this episode, I will update the notes if it does modify the ranking at all with the new album, where it currently sits at number 7. We'll see if it's got enough stamina to bust Field of Fire out of that number 6 spot based on...
He had a lot of really thoughtful things to say about all these albums, so appreciated having the list to follow along with.
Yeah, that's a good point. I will also be looking to read those words. We'll revisit that at a later date. We'll update the listeners, one of our later episodes, just to see where things shake out. But do not sleep on that brand new Overkill. Don't sleep on anything since. Don't sleep on the band, first of all. But if you need a starting point, go back to Ironbound and work your way forward to Scorched. And then don't sleep on the earlier works by any means. And hey, check out those 90 albums. They did sync. That's kind of where the rankings really drop off, is with I Hear Black all the way down to Immortalis. So from that period, that is their weaker part of their catalog. But damn, there's some kick-ass music and some great... You put on the album, you don't have to skip a track type of things. These are still strong releases. You just got to find where they rank from 0 to 20.
Indeed. And we did it.
We did it.
With the help of AI.
Well, with the help of AI, yes. For the first time ever on a podcast, maybe. I don't know, but I don't listen to them all. But at least for the first time on the Disciples of the Watch, yes, AI has contributed to our re-ranking of the catalog.
Have you played around with that anymore, outside of doing that Overkill thing?
I chatted a little bit with it. It would ask a question. Everything that was it would respond, and then it would ask a question afterwards. And so we talked a little bit, me and the computer. And then just like, well, you're really a big fan of like heavy metal. And it was asking me about other bands, and I asked if the question was if I kept up with more modern bands, like newer artists. And I said, yes, I do, because I host a podcast where we play new bands, new independent bands from all over the world. So yes, I do keep on touch with a whole bunch of new material that's coming out. So then it was asking me questions about podcasting and stuff. So it was limited to 20. You could ask it 20 things, or you could have 20 responses, or whatever, however that shook out. And then it would kind of time out and say, okay, now you can, I think it's called like sweep the conversation and start over.
Huh.
I didn't do that, but as I was like listening to the independent artists for the upcoming independent music special, I was popping on there and like just continuing the conversation. I was just kind of curious to see where it would go and how it would work. So that was my first time chatting with AI.
I haven't messed around with it at all. I did download one of the apps, but then I seen you have to pay for it.
Oh, really?
I think I checked 2 of them, and they both were pay. You get like a week free or whatever, and I was just like, I have some concerns about all of it, and so I just don't even dabble at all. But I did, when we were joking around about doing that, saying we were doing that for the list and all that, I was like, fuck, I should just go on there and just see what's up with it. But I'm sure all the people interacting with it is helping them develop it further. So
right, as long as they just don't come up with a plan to wipe out humanity. I think that would be nice.
Some of
It's
my
going
other
to tell
friends,
us how to take over the world with our podcast, Nate. I did get some notes.
Okay, well, as long as it's going to help us do that. I've got some friends that are fairly intellectual people, and they've had real negative things to say about their interactions on there and how limited it is. You know, basically, like, if you don't know a lot of shit about what you're asking, then it may seem like it's really saying a lot. But if you know a lot about what you're putting in there, it's real base or surface.
Well, yeah, that's why I asked it about overkill, something I'm very fluent in.
Exactly. And
Actually,
it just gave a randomized opinion. So,
well, yeah, here, I'll read what it actually wrote back to me when I asked it to rank Overkill's albums from worst to best. The reply was, "That's a tough question, as different fans may have different opinions and preferences. However, based on some online rankings," and it gives 5 examples, no, more than 5, 7, so 10 sites that it used to culminate its own list. It says, here is one possible way to rate the Overkill albums from worst to best. Of course, they start with Immortalis as the worst, and they finish with the Years of Decay as the best. Although having Horoscope at number 3 is very interesting. And then it finishes off after the list. It says, of course, this is just one possible ranking, and you may disagree with some of the choices. What do you think? Of course, I didn't go down that rabbit hole saying, actually, you know what I did say? Is I expected you to have Ironbound higher on the list. That was my only comment regarding what its output, regarding its list.
did it have a reply?
It did. Yeah. I don't remember what it was. God, I wonder if that chat's still up.
Well, before anybody scoffs at the potential destructive possibilities of what this is going to do to our society even further than the shit we've already seen, just remember that there have been other civilizations on this planet that are no longer on this planet. So,
Yeah.
don't get a big head thinking we're it forever, because there's plenty of history on this planet that we know of the rise and fall of fucking humanity.
Here's what the reply. I said, here's my exact words. I said, I think Ironbound should be higher on the list, but as you pointed out, it's a matter of opinion. So I'm engaging it like I would just some stranger on the internet. I'm not talking to it like it's like a stupid Alexa or something like that.
I think you should say, fuck your opinion. What's up with you putting Ironbound on this ranking?
Well, here's was its reply, being AI. It says, I respect your opinion. Ironbound is a great album, and many fans consider it a comeback for Overkill after some weaker releases in the 2000s. It has some of their most memorable songs, such as Ironbound, Bring Me the Night, and The Green and Black. What do you like most about Ironbound? So see how it asks questions to kind of keep the conversation going in a direction. But there's ways to sidetrack it where I could answer the question and go, but the reason I do this, or they actually asked if I've seen them live, and I said, yes, I've seen them live several times. That's awesome. I bet they put on a great show. What was the best Overkill concert you attended? And on and on.
Can you ask it shit like how to replace a head gasket on a motorcycle, or you know what I mean?
You may have to get more specific.
Yeah.
I want to replace the head gasket on a 1974 Harley Davidson Fat Boy. Or did they have Fat Boys back then?
Boy, I don't think so.
Okay. But you get the idea. And I think then it would be able to, because what it basically does is it scours, it's got all the, basically the internet is its tool, and it's pulling in information. So you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt, because it's still, human beings are influencing it based on what we have out there on the internet.
But because it's a computer, we can trust that its information is absolutely accurate, correct?
As accurate as it can be based on that input. Yes. I mean, for Christ's sakes, Nate, it had Ironbound out of the top 10. AI has got a long way to go if it really wants to fucking be smart enough to take out human beings.
We've already pointed out flaws in the system here.
Yes, we broke the internet with this one, Nate. Or at least AI. Well, that was a lot of fun, Nate. It was nice to finally get through all the rankings. We've done a lot of different Overkill things over the years, but sitting down and ranking the albums, it was actually really cool. We did it now after their 20th full-length studio album, so it kind of ties in really nicely. Long overdue, but it was also good timing as well.
Yeah, I'm glad we got to include Scorched in the discussion, because it is such a strong album that it's even in my top
Agreed.
5. So
Yes, that's saying something. How you feeling about our final song, Nate? I picked it this time, but I wanted to get your input before we picked our song to send everybody out with.
I suggested we close out with "Fuck You."
Oh, you weren't just telling me to fuck off?
No, I was not. But I do want to say that that was an EP that came out back in the 80s, and many people wore that T-shirt to school with the big middle finger on it and had to cover it up.
Yep, turn it inside out or whatnot.
I thought we didn't really discuss that because it was an EP and whatnot, but it was very popular for Overkill back in the day, and it's a really cool song. It's got some
a lot of
punk and
attention.
thrash attitude to it.
And it is a cover. I know a lot of people don't know that, or they think they have to remind Overkill fans that it is a cover. Yes, we know. And for those of you who didn't, well, there you go. It's a cover song. They didn't write it. They only perfected it.
Well said.
There you have it, everybody. Enjoy the song. If you've heard it, you probably enjoy it. If you haven't heard it, you will enjoy it. If not, we don't care what you say.
Fuck you. Fuck you. We're actually going to close with a new song.
That's right. We decided we're going to throw some fever at you from the new album Scorched. Nate, any parting words?
Stay heavy.
We're coming to say
Thank you for listening to the Disciples of the Watch. This show was produced by Gene Vogel and Nathan Matinich. Editing by Gene Vogel. Check us out on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at DOTWPOD, and don't forget to visit DOTWPOD.com for show notes, links, and more information on the show. You can subscribe and stream us in the Stitcher app. We're also available in Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Amazon, all sorts of different locations. We have links on our website so you can find us there, or we have a FeedBurner RSS feed that you can plug into your favorite app and use that in order to subscribe or at least to get updates when new episodes are posted. And if none of those are appealing to you, head over to our website. You can actually download the MP3 files directly from the site as well as stream them from DOTWPOD.com. And hey, while you're at the Disciples of the Watch website, you can also check out our music file tagging tips, which will include a link to mp3tag.de, and there's all sorts of great graphics that will walk you through properly tagging your music to submit to not only us, but to your PR people, and before uploading them to sites such as Bandcamp or anywhere else you want them to enjoy your music. And while you're at the website, click on Support the Show, which is directly underneath the banner at the top of the page. That will take you to the store where you can purchase his or her t-shirts, hoodies, zip-up, and pullovers, as well as a variety of different clothing options. If you're the kind of person who doesn't like wearing clothes, there is also a link that you can support the show with a one-time donation or a reoccurring donation. And while you're at it, have yourself a fabulous day.